Hey, folks, we're back at it again. It's Lindsey Huddleston with SPS back for another episode of the SPS Edge Show. Got my Terry with Basquiat paintings in the background. I can't quite tell. We got the awesome artwork going on, living it up. And then Orlando, no, that is not a screensaver, folks. I know he's good with the technology, but Orlando is in Orlando, Florida, for the AAU national meeting that's taking place. He's having this influence. How you guys doing? Terry, how you doing, man?
I'm good. So one thing that's cool about my office is always some unique artwork. Every month they come and switch it up. So because I'm filming here, y'all might see a little something new every week.
All right, I love it. I love it that you give it up. Orlando, tell us what's going on down in Orlando, in O-Town. Well, there may be a little lag for Orlando. He may be frozen now. Okay. Oh, can you hear us okay?
James E. Sullivan Award for the Amateur Athlete of the Year. So looking for some very good information coming from all sports.
Okay. Well, that's all. We're glad we got you here. We appreciate you, man. And what's the temperature like down there?
I'm in a hoodie. That's because it's cold in the hotel. It's about 80 degrees out here. Don't get mad. And I appreciate the SPS Edge budget for the great time I'm having here in Florida.
Got you double fisted, baby. Well, we're going to do the best we can right here. What I want to do right now is thank you guys for supporting the Stars SPS Combine Showcase that took place last weekend. Terry, you were able to be there in Orlando. Your presence was missed, but your presence was felt because of the great concept you introduced regarding metrics and measurement. We were able to do a number of things with our young people, getting them to do shuttle runs, off-the-wall bounce passes, left-hand layup 30 seconds, right-hand layup. In Orlando, again, I thank you for having that brainchild moment when we were at the SPS Stars showcase in Metro Detroit, Harper Woods, that is. And, of course, Terry was there, too. Terry, I got some video to show of a young man who seemed to be just blowing people away everywhere he goes. Our young guy that we've been working with and getting to see him grow and get notoriety is Tyler Spratt. We have some footage on him. If you know what, I'm looking for it. I seem to have missed it, but I want to make sure I bring that back because we had that. But Terry, just give me your feedback on what the showcase was like for you.
No, it was exciting. It was good to see the greater Lansing area come out. I mean, we had kids come out as far as Dansville, I think. I think that was the first, other than Tyler coming from North Farmington Hills, but got some Dansville people in the house, Everett, Waverly, of course, just everybody representing everywhere and just getting after it. I think that was really cool. And everybody compliment each other's game. It was a good basketball community and every school made their presence felt. And, everyone was just having fun playing the game. But most important, there was some competition. I mean, these guys are going to be playing against each other in the next couple of weeks. And so it was cool to see them kind of get up and down against each other, but also take it serious with having Josh coming in and giving some great remarks and just talking about honoring people. And a lot of people were talking to me afterwards, like, man, I took so much away from Josh. And so just being blessed with that opportunity too.
Yeah, and I appreciate you mentioning our guest speaker, Josh Langford. We had to have a great sit down with him. We had like a 10-minute interview we did that was getting rave reviews. But I'm just grateful from whence we came. And I'm grateful for you guys' support. I can't tell you the number of phone calls and communications I've been getting about, hey, when you have the next one and highlighting players, and I think we're on to something as far as what we can keep doing. Orlando, if you can you chime in again about you finding the importance of measurement and bringing metrics to our combine style event and kind of under the umbrella where you are right now with AAU. What do you think about that?
I just think that adding metrics to the situation takes that subjectiveness away from it, which is important. I mean, I think
you mean some people go be biased. Some people come to these events with a bias.
Absolute bias, and it may be not a conscious bias.
Oh,
there's certain things that you see. And then you want something to come back and say, nowadays, data is everything. And every decision that you make from, what type of shoes you're going to wear, to the clothes you're going to wear, to the type of televisions you're going to buy, it's all based upon data. And I think you have a very firm, you get a good grasp of what's going on. I don't want to take away from people's opinion, but let's add some data to that opinion to give a clear view of what's going on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think one knock on youth sports, particularly youth basketball, has been that, a lot of people have been able to leverage certain kind of influence. And what happens is that objectivity is missing. That objectivity is not there. And I think with us in the SPS Stars Combine, we're going to be able to address that. And again, I'm working on getting some footage up from my young guy, Tyler Spratt, who's been doing some great things at North Farmington. My understanding is everywhere he goes, he catches people off guard, catches them by surprise, and he ends up being the future individual that they're looking at. Later in the show, we'll work to see if we can get that technology working. I thought I had it going, but we'll make sure we get it. Shout out to his parents, D and Fly as well, Tony Spratt. So with that, Terry, we're going to talk about something I know you love to talk about. Anything. I know it's not Ohio State football, but it's pretty close. It's NFL football. I want to talk about Derrick Henry, man, his Monday Night Football performance, man. He was on some video game piece. At one point, I think that he was actually clocked at going 22 miles an hour as he was making his way out. I mean, whether you caught the game or not, I'm sure you caught the headlines. Terry, what's your take on Derrick Henry's Monday Night Football performance?
No, it was a big game. It was a statement game, not only for the Titans to make their presence felt in their division, but also in the AFC. And Derrick Henry took that challenge upon itself. A lot of talk in the offseason talking about, what about Julio joining? Are they going to be more pass-minded? No, Derrick Henry said this is still a running football team. And as you said, on that 76-yard touchdown run, he was clocked at 21.8. I give him 22 miles an hour. I give him that 22. He was clocked at 22 miles an hour. I'll give it to him. NFL Next Gen Stats gave it to him, so I give it to him as well. I mean, the dude is 6'3", 238 pounds. That's what they got him as. You never know. The season he can get bigger, he can get like thinner. You never know. But the point is that dude is a man amongst boys. He runs the ball with a purpose. And part of the thing I like about him is that it seems like he never gets tired throughout the game. He's always running hard. He's always running tough. But as we know, as the game goes on, they gave it to Derrick Henry 20 times. But the thing is that they did a great job of splitting it up. They didn't give it to him all at once. They did a great job of wearing the defense down, keeping them guessing. The Buffalo Bills secondary is pretty good this year, so Derrick Henry did a really good job of keeping them off balance and forcing those guys to come up and make tackles instead of just picking quarterbacks off like they did Patty Mahomes weeks before. So they did a great job of making Derrick Henry comfortable in the offense, getting him spots where he could be great. And the dude got speed. Don't let his size confuse you. Dude he'll run you over, he'll stiff arm you. I haven't seen him bring out the B button, the spin move yet, but hey, we'll never know.
Right. No, that's awesome, man. He's doing that. I don't know if you were traveling at the time, Orlando, with Monday Night Football, or may have caught the headlines. I'm just wondering, when you hear about a great running back like Derrick Henry, does it remind you of anyone? Is this almost like the Barry Sanders of, I'll go back as far as Walter Payton or someone along those lines when you hear about Derrick Henry and the type of performance he has?
Yeah, I was able to pick up, the headlines and all the highlights. It's just incredible. I think he's carving a niche all his own. I mean, that speed that he displayed is just absolutely ridiculous. It's amazing. I'm excited to see, how the rest of the season goes. But what he has done is unbelievable. Truly unbelievable.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, we'll keep an eye out and see. Terry, while we're on this Monday Night Football, I mean, that wasn't the only game played or just we got to Thursday night, the games that will be played tonight. Anything stands out to you as we talk about this past week in the NFL and what's coming up?
Well, for one, I think weeks before we gave Green Bay a lot of criticism. Green Bay looks to starting to hit their stride a little bit, Rodgers. And I think one thing to point out, too, is that it seems like he's having fun again in Green Bay. His teammates, they had the joke along this week against Chicago. Rodgers is saying, I still own you, with his previous success against the Chicago Bears. So I thought that was something cool to point out as well. Detroit Lions still haven't gotten over that hump yet. This week they play against Stafford, so that's something to look forward to. The Lions do play the Rams, but it isn't in Detroit. It's in LA, so it's just something to watch. Just give headlines. Everybody's gonna be looking how Stafford plays against his old team. So NFL, it's lived up to the hype in my opinion. My Browns are in a bit of the injury bug. I mean, everyone's on the IR, coming up this week. So hopefully they get some of those guys back. But I mean, the NFL's lit up to the hype. I mean, the Bills are still good in my opinion. Patty Mahomes did a pretty good job against an underperforming Washington team, in my opinion. But I mean, it's lived up to the hype. Every weekend is always something new. And like tonight, we got the Browns versus the Broncos. Who knows? I mean, Cleveland has a lot of people out. Case Keenum is making his first start tonight.
What do you anticipate the outcome's going to be with Case Keenum coming in?
Case Keenum is a game manager, but the problem with having a game managing quarterback is that you have to have the weapons, to make you a game manager. So Case Keenum, unfortunately, is going to have to make plays to win you games, and I'm not sure how that works out. But Myles Garrett did call out the defense. So Myles Garrett calling the defense out. That followed up with a great game against Chicago against my boy Justin Fields. So maybe we see some more of that action. But Teddy Bridgewater's been playing really well this season with those Broncos. So, I mean, Broncos could easily win, but Cleveland and Myles Garrett could easily overpower the Broncos to get the Browns to win.
Yeah, I love it. I'm just curious to know, for Orlando's sake, man, when you hear everything that's happening in football, when you hear about Keenan coming in for Baker Mayfield, can you bet on a kid like that coming in? What has football showed you in the past? Could this be one of those amazing nights that the guy that people just thought was, as Terry said, was going to be a game manager can come and do some amazing things, or it's pretty much going to be as advertised?
I think I'm barely. You kind of broke out. Like you just really one more time.
Yeah, just what do you think about a kid like Keenan coming in to replace Baker Mayfield under these circumstances? Is going to be business as usual?
I have completely lost audio here.
Okay. Well, we're going to come back. Just hold tight. When you get back, we'll get you set. Just hold tight. But that's okay.
Hold on now. I got you now.
You got me now?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering just what your thought is when you have a player coming in to be a backup like a Keenan. Do you anticipate a breakout night, or will it just be business as usual with no expectations?
I think we're looking at business as usual, no expectations, really.
Yeah, I get it. Well, we'll watch and see. That's okay. We're gonna keep moving now. We're gonna keep with the football. And just really talk about these guys, man. Referring to the Spartans. I was over at the men's basketball media day, but I got to see some of these guys walk in the door and get to check them out and see what they were talking about. And the things that they're doing right now, I just don't know what to say, man. What do you think is happening with these Spartans right now? They're on a roll for a collision course with University of Michigan the week after next. What do you think is going to be happening? What do you think the outcome is going to be, Terry?
Just a couple stats to point out, with the explosion this year that MSU's had, bouncing back from last year's COVID year. They got 7 plays of 60-plus yards this season. That's tied for the most in FBS. Kenneth Walker on the season has 997 yards, which is most in FBS. They held 6 of the 7 opponents to 21 or fewer points. So they're doing it all around. And MSU's, they do have a back-end schedule, which means they play a lot of the tougher teams at the end of the year all at once, it seems like, which is okay. It just causes you to focus on your season, focus on what's ahead of you. They've done a great job, taking care of business. This week, Indiana is a team that they can catch you slipping, but they can be easily put away. And I think MSU did have their struggles, though. Peyton Thorne didn't really play as clean as we would have liked. But like I said, the Big Ten, it's tough. I mean, there's a reason why 6 of our teams are ranked. I mean, the Big Ten, no matter who you play, they're going to give you their best fight. They've seen you before over the last years. They know what to expect when you come in. So, I mean, them having a tough game with that. And I expect Michigan to have maybe a tough game with Northwestern, maybe fight it out for the first couple quarters and then Michigan pulls away. It's just Big Ten football. Every week is competitive, and it's just so much fun to watch. But I got to clear something up. So everybody's really upset about how Michigan State and Michigan's not playing at 7:30. Not, they're not playing prime time. I get it, guys. But it's all Fox. It's Fox is trying to do the big noon, the big Fox noon game, like they did with Wisconsin and Notre Dame, like they tried to do with Penn State and Iowa a little bit. They tried, but they played at 3:30. So it's just Fox is trying to do this thing where they want in the Big Ten that big Big Ten game at noon, or that big Big 12 game at noon. It's just a thing that Fox is trying to promote. I call it a stunt. They're trying it out. They did it over the last couple of years, but now that Big Ten teams are playing how they're used to, now we're able to see that stunt come to play. So don't blame nobody but Fox. It's Fox's fault. I know we wanted at prime time, but I think, college students are upset. They're not able to drink and go crazy like they wanted prime time in East Lansing. But no matter what time, it's going to be a great game, and I'm really pulling for Sparty in that game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, even with that, why don't you take us through anything that stands out to you for this week in college football? I know we're talking about Michigan State because it's a local team right now, but anything else stand out, some matchups to watch out for?
Well, we saw this week, Georgia's legit. Last week, Georgia's legit. Well, I should say their defense is legit. Their defense is probably the best. I'd say the best defense in the nation right now. Their offense still with Kirby Smart and their play calling still has me on edge a little bit. That's just with his prior seasons, in my opinion, is why my bias is like that. But their defense is always good, and it's good to see it kind of shown. They had a little bit of a hype coming into that Kentucky game. Kentucky was unbeaten. Maybe they give Georgia a run for their money. No, I'm sorry. We didn't see it. But a team that we didn't see was legit was Iowa. I mean, if that team finally caught Iowa slipping, Purdue slips into that 25 spot. That's great for that program because they beat Iowa 24-7. And I think what they did a great job of being athletes. They were able to get after the quarterback, and they were able to run the ball well. They did all the things that they want to do, which a good traditional team like Iowa, they don't allow you really to do the things you want to do. But when you get after their quarterback, we force Iowa to play behind the sticks. That's how you beat any team, but really against Iowa, when a team that's very mediocre, prehistoric offenses, they like to run, they like to move the chains, move the ball forward, and you have them moving backwards, that's not Iowa's game, and that's any formula against a team that runs an offense like that.
What you say, the prehistoric offense, they caught up?
Yeah, they get 3 yards in a cloud of dust. That's what Iowa does. They like to keep it rolling. They like to push the line forward, push the running back forward. It's the prehistoric days.
Yeah, somehow a team's offense. Go ahead, Orlando.
Yeah, Terry, I just had a quick question for you. I got a personal request here. Sitting poolside. They want a very firm opinion. What is your thoughts on Florida football right now?
Oh, that's great.
Perfect. I think Florida's interesting because Florida can be really good athletes without a question. I would say I think that Florida and Georgia game is going to be interesting in my opinion because I think Georgia's offense is really competitive, but Florida, because of how they saw and how they got up to play against Alabama, I think that game is going to be very interesting. One, it's a rivalry game, and they better be up. But two, I think Dan Mullen is a great play caller, and against a team like Georgia with that aggressive defense, you got to be able to be creative, just like the play caller from Oregon. I'm blanking his name. What he did to Ohio State, complete murdered us. I mean, it's a chess game, and I think if Dan Mullen's able to do that against Georgia, I think they have a chance to win.
So beyond that,
just a quick question. I think we got one more for him. What do they think about the tight end play of Florida?
That must be him right there.
yeah.
No, I love what Mullen's doing, man. SEC football, y'all gotta beat Georgia for real. I think that's something that will definitely put y'all back in there. Because then if y'all beat Georgia, that leaves y'all right up there to play Alabama and maybe slip back in that college football playoff. So is
that Kyle Pitts?
He can hear you.
Is that Kyle Pitts?
He can hear you. Go ahead and come. Introduce yourself. Introduce yourself.
I'm Gamble, Lamar Gamble.
Lamar Gamble, welcome, man. How you doing? Hey, listen, Started
tight end at University of Florida.
All right, hey, welcome. Hold on, let me get you on. Hey, man, we welcome you, and we figure we can say whatever we want to say because you way in Florida. Just don't hurt Orlando, man. Don't take it out on him, man. So tell us how you feeling. How you feeling about this season coming back off of COVID and getting ready? What's up, KJ?
I feel like it's different having fans now in the stands now. Probably
Yeah, it's different. So, what's your prediction for the rest of the season? How things are gonna go?
I feel like we're gonna have a long stretch on winning a lot of games past the last 6 games.
Okay, we're gonna keep an eye out. Well, we know you ain't gonna.
I gotta ask one.
Go ahead, Terry. Go ahead.
Are y'all gonna beat Georgia?
You gonna wake up tomorrow?
Oh wow! Hey,
I love that.
Hey, you sound like you done got that question before, man. Are you ready for it? Huh? No, man, we appreciate you popping in. We want to definitely give you our support. We'll be keeping our eye out for you with that, and know that you in good hands down there, man. We appreciate the cameo and everything that's going on too. Put my man Terry on the spot, like, hey man, what's up with Florida? All right, we appreciate you guys. That's cool. Kyrie, we appreciate you too. We can't wait to support your speed clinic coming up on November 6th. We'll definitely be there with bells on representing, okay? Well, you weren't expecting that, huh, Terry?
No, I wasn't.
You see, that's why you gotta be ready. But when you walk around Florida, just keep your eyes out. So with that being said, we'll look at making a transition. We'll move on to Michigan State basketball. As I said yesterday, I was at the media day for Michigan State basketball. This is one of the camera shots. Got Gabe Brown, Julius Marble, great young men. Coach Izzo spent a lot of time talking about this roster. He was pretty straightforward, saying, hey, you know, they weren't as tough as they needed to be last year. He said a lot more time has been put, in the weight room. He said you see guys going from just working out in the weight room, then eventually they want to take their shirt halfway off, and then they got their shirt all the way off, and everybody's flexing. He said, however, when you get more physically tougher, it makes you tougher on the court, and I can agree to that as well. I'm glad that I'm glad that I had a chance to get over there. I was able to ask him a question. I initially went in, I was going to ask him about the leadership void that may be there because Josh Langford is transitioning. Terry, as I said, you and I had a great discussion with Josh at the SPS Stars Combine and Showcase. But I was intrigued by what he talked about because he mentioned that, pretty much he's moved the title in the position of his confidant from years and years and years, OG, that being Mike Garland, to now special assistant to the coach. And he said part of that includes things like if Mike has to jump on a plane and go see a Miles Bridges to help him out. So my question to him was, like, I was intrigued by the fact that you still have this type of connection with your players, that you would even do that. And he went on to talk about that was kind of behind the conception of Grind Week. He did mention Austin Thornton, who's on the staff that assisted, but I also know Travis Walton was the originator some time ago of Grind Week, down in Florida, whether it was with Denzel or Brent. But he is talking about how now for an entire week, these guys come back and sometimes they have 3-a-days, Terry, 3-a-days. And you have the older players talking to the younger players. I'm going to shout out my guy, Vern Richards. I was just with him. He's with Juice Nation, has been a big supporter. And he said it's pretty hard to say no when you're recruiting and you're on campus. You got everybody from Draymond Green, Denzel Valentine. Shout out to Jaren Jackson Jr. Just got $100 million, the contract extension. So you got all these things. So it was really good to hear that from Tom and talk about why that's important to the DNA. And he also just said that from too many times you hear a player that's in the league 2 or 3 years and they're gone. And I think he's seeing part of his legacy is the guys that he's able to get to the NBA can stay in the NBA. He mentioned he had just talked to Doc Rivers, thought to why he'd be talking to him about Simmons to come up shortly, but no, he was talking to him about I'm sure Aaron Henry, and what it's going to take, to get his guys there and to keep them there. And I thought that was interesting. So overall, it was a great, great experience. It was good to see the young men get to know some of the new players, some of the walk-on players, and then be reconnected with players that have been there some time. So if anyone wants to watch, you can go to my Facebook page, Lindsey Huddleston. You can see the interviews. You can see it on SPS Edge on IG as well if you want to get a little bit of insight with these players. So, Terry, I know you were kind of watching from afar. I appreciate the shout out when I was doing the Facebook Live. You talked about how good my seats were. Yeah, they were, man. And guess what? With the Facebook Live, somehow the meme piece came on where it started putting faces over these guys' heads. So it was like, yeah, it was kind of cool. It wasn't done intentionally. I mean, I never want to purposely, mock these young men, but it was like it started going. I was like, oh, I can't even stop it. But that happened. But anyway, you got any feedback on the Facebook? Excuse me, on the event that took place with the media day?
Yeah, I mean, I thought, one thing I really like about Media Day, whether it's Big Ten, whether it's NBA, NFL, all the above, we get to see some of the players that we typically don't hear from. And, I personally enjoyed all the interviews with, players that probably won't be talking on ESPN, probably won't get the Big Ten interview. I just really enjoy hearing different perspectives from different players on the team. Like, what have they learned? Or how does it feel to be in the Spartan Green? Just like little questions that, that they've been really prepping for. Because like we mentioned at the clinic, I mean, media training. So it's cool to see how everyone looked comfortable in front of you. Even though they couldn't see all the memes and stuff you were doing with their face, it was hilarious. I love that part too. I thought it added a little style to it. But
yeah, it was different. That came up on the Facebook Live feed. I wanted to say this, and I want to get your thoughts. David Smith, a son of Steve Smith, and I didn't say that during the interview, but it was definitely alluded to. I really wanted to get his feedback on what it's like having a name, if you will, and being in a situation that people probably approach you all the time, and they probably say to you, ask more about who your parents are. And he gave a really good response here. He said, just because you have someone with the name in your family doesn't mean that that's your mark. You can go and create your own legacy. He has just gotten on scholarship, so he is actually a scholarship athlete at Michigan State. And then when I asked him about something that people don't know about, he said he's a great chef. He said he get down with the gumbo. He credited that to his mother, being from Lake Charles, Louisiana. So it was just really interesting getting that feedback from him, talking to some of the incoming players like PBJ, that's Pierre Brooks Jr., who was Mr. Basketball, won the state championship, and now he's here playing in the same arena he won those accolades in. And also Jaden Akins from Detroit area. We knew about him. We talked about him on this show. The transition he had from Ipsy Prep going down to Sunrise Christian and now being there now, being ready to contribute. And it was just great. And even Wittens, what's Wittens' the first name I want to say? Wittens and Peter Wolke as well. I mean, it was great to connect with these young men. Whitens is from the UP. And he had a preferred walk-on opportunity to come to Michigan State, but he chose to take a scholarship at Western Michigan. And now he's over at now he's made it in. We got our guy in the building, Aaron Mays. What's up, brother? He says, excellent job. Thank you very much, man. We miss you. We appreciate you checking in with us, whatnot, but we doing it. But no, any more thoughts on Michigan? Oh, and lastly, I'll just say with Gabe Brown, we went back and forth about where he stood as a freshman to where he is now, and he just talks about the maturity and everything you did. Oh, thank you, Aaron. He was complimenting the question on media day. I did. Matter of fact, I got a phone call about that, from my guy Vernon, saying the same thing. And I'm glad that I can be in that space and pose questions that can be beneficial to everybody and that people can see and get feedback on. But go ahead, Terry. Let's get the rest of your thoughts on media day.
One thing I sensed through the camera, I really felt the excitement for this year. I mean, a lot of that comes from when your football team's really doing well. And you got a guy like Coach Izzo that's coaching your basketball team. That energy usually translates onto the basketball court. So you can just feel the energy. I mean, even, a week ago, they had that Izzo camp out. I mean, everyone is just excited to be back in there.
13,000 tents, I believe they had out there, something crazy.
They were excited. I mean, the Izzone's back this year. Everyone's just excited to see this team. And I think that, having that external excitement really helps your basketball team. It makes you, it makes you want to go get that extra workout. It makes you want to get that extra lift in. It makes you want to make that extra effort to get better each day because you got people cheering for you, thousands of people cheering for you, and they're to rock with you all season. So just seeing the excitement from the boosters, who hosted, everyone that was there at the dinner and at the media day, it just makes you excited as a ball player coming in every day to get better.
Yeah, no, you're right, man. And I think also too with the COVID year, it's given a greater appreciation, whether you're a freshman on campus or you're finally like, look, man, we can't take these things for granted. And this season they'll have full occupancy. They'll be able to let the folks in. The fans will be able to be there. And I think it's easy to take for granted access to these type of programs. And you're right, it's going to add some extra excitement. It may push these guys. And I'm pretty sure Michigan State coming in unranked. And Tom Izzo addressed that. He talked about college football, how you had the top 10 in preseason, and now that list has been obliterated. It just really changes. And I think that's probably something he's going to use as a tool to motivate his players. But, but when you can have pros come back $100 million up and say, hey, buy into what coaches talk about. And he also spoke to some coaching changes that he made. Matt McQuaid, Cueto, as he affectionately is known, is on the coaching staff now as the Dabo, director of basketball operations. He's learning that role. And this is all advice that he's taken from Draymond Green. He openly said, Draymond said, look, man, you got to get a little bit of younger guys on your staff, man. What's up, man? And I think he's taking that into consideration. So a lot to be said about Tom. He's 66 years old going into this season. He said he has more energy than he's felt before. I think he's very introspective now. I mean, that's what we've been watching from him over the past couple of years, and that's the things that we always talk about. But it was really interesting to be around those guys and get a sense of what this future is going to be like. Aaron posed a question. Aaron, what do you think about Garland and Montgomery switch? I just think that's part of that shakeup that he talked about to bring some energy back. That part of that Garland switch Tom talked about, it was to allow him to be in a position to take off at times to still do things that are an extension of Coach Izzo. For example, that's what led to me posing that question when he said, Mike may have to go check on, Miles Bridges. I'm like, dude, he's in the pro. What do you mean check on him? But that's part of that DNA that I was asking Tom Izzo about. And I think he's also realizing, man, it's like, if I get guys to go to the league, man, I got to keep them in the league. That keeps my reputation. That helps my recruiting. When I can say, hey, man, I got guys that made it. I mean, come on, man. What better way to recruit, Terry, than to say, hey, man, bring some of these pros in, guys who are in the position you're in. I'm sure that it's something to be said. And then the way, Coach put it, short of him, bumping his chest, he was like, man, don't nobody in the country do this. He said, as he's put it, you're damn right. Nobody else in the country does that. So he takes a lot of pride in that. What do you think about that, Terry?
No, it's like a brotherhood. I mean, it kind of I go back to when Zion was making his recruiting decision and he last minute decided to go to Duke because of the brotherhood, how it's bigger than basketball. It's a family. And I think, being a Spartan dog, it's a family type too. And I think Draymond does a great job of that. Just being that commander of like, yo, you come to MSU, this is a family. We buy into Izzo and we take care of each other on and off. And I think, with him making that decision to go check on his players, ultimately players are looking like, okay, who from this school made it to the NBA? Okay, they got the list of names. Well, all right, let me go check the active roster and see who's still there. That's the next step. And that's where I think a lot of
make it to the NBA, but can you stay in the NBA?
Right. And then that's the next step. So guys are like, oh, well, what happened to him? Or he was a bust. But they don't think about why. They just think, oh, he came from here. So then, coaches are preaching like, hey, we're going to put you in the best position to be a better player and hopefully get you the league. But Izzo's taking this next step of like, look, now we're going to make sure they stay in the league. We're going to make sure they're good in the league, how they're doing mentally, how they're doing physically, their play. Now he's taking it to the next level. And so I hope Izzo didn't leak it too much so other people don't steal his game. But I think that's such a great thing to utilize at MSU.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, also to Aaron's point, you make an X. They try to do it at North Carolina and Duke, but it's like not like the way it is at MSU. And I would say one of the reasons probably why is the figurehead. I mean, Mike Krzyzewski is on his way out, as well as Aaron.
Roy is out.
Roy is out, so you got somebody coming back trying to recreate a culture compared to it being there. We got Michael Jones with a comment that we appreciate. So what are your expectations for this Michigan State team? And how good is Tyson Walker supposed to be? Now, I want to start with that part, Michael. And again, thank you for sharing. When I saw Michael, when I saw Tyson, I didn't get a chance to get over to him. He was like one of the only individuals I didn't get a chance to sit with. But he walks in with a brash bravado. He has his chest out. He's like, hey, I've arrived. And for the time that I saw him on the court, at a previous, open practice, he still had that attitude. To me, I think he's the most dominant player on the court, and his size has nothing to do with that because he is a guard. Also, when he was in the league that he came from, he was the defensive player of the year. So he comes with a cockiness, that I think we'll get to know more about. So I would say that he's probably going to be the most significant player on this team. Gabe is definitely going to be a scorer, and I hope that he can get things in order for that. So my expectations for this team, man, I don't see this as being a Big Ten championship team. And I don't think that's a bad thing to say. That's just a reality. They're a fairly young team. They're missing a lot of leadership right now. And then they're just really missing the star player. I think if you ask, you can look at someone like a young Jaden Akins, who may be a flashy player at one point, who I'm a really big fan on. I'm a big fan of him. I'm down with his family. I'm all about that. But I just don't see star power at this time. However, this is not, a team full of seniors. I mean, these guys got a chance to grow, a recruit here, a transfer here, or whatnot. It can be really different. And lastly, before I go to you, Terry, if you want to chime in on that, page said, congrats to Jaren Jackson on a big contract. Yeah, Tom joked that he texted Jaren and said, hey, man, congratulations. Don't worry. He said, now you can take me to eat. And he said, no, I'll still take you to Burger King. You just take me to Ruth Chris. And lastly, Deion also said, I said on my page, I want to see if Gabe Brown and Bingham can take their game to the next level. Deion, man, they're going to have to. And as much as I love Gabe and as much as I love Markey, man, I'm concerned, man. I'm concerned if they've hit a ceiling, man. I know Gabe has a tremendous work ethic. I know they've been talking about Markey gaining weight, Marcus Bingham, that is, gaining weight since he got there. They said jokingly that he broke Kevin Durant's combine bench record. And if you remember, Kevin Durant's record was 0. And the joke was that he broke it because he got negative, meaning that he tried to pull a bar up and it fell through his chest. So those are the things that, may limit him and make him an overseas player, a European player, or something like that. As far as Gabe, man, I don't know. He made a comment that he's been through everything with Coach Izzo, ups and downs and all that type of stuff. Max Christie the same way. What are you thinking right now, Terry?
I think MSU is going to be able to compete for the Big Ten championship. I think Purdue is probably one of the favorites in my opinion. I think MSU can compete. My thought is, how good will they be for March? And I think the team that they have right now, I think you could argue and say that they're constructed to be to do pretty well in the tournament, depending on matchups. So I think as far as Big Ten wise, I don't see them winning it right now. I think they'll compete for it for sure. But I do see them have maybe a solid little run in March, if they make it for sure. Because I think just the way that they're constructed, and a big thing in March is guard play. I think Tyson Walker has a really good chance to be one of the best guards in the country. I think Izzo's going to have fun with this guard because he doesn't have to teach him to play defense. And that was something that Izzo always had to teach his point guards, was how to play defense. I mean, like Cassius Winston. I mean, maybe not Keith Applin, but I would say more so Cassius, if to be accurate on this. I would say more so Cassius, because Cassius did have those years his freshman, sophomore year where the defense was his struggle. But having a guy with that two-way mindset, I think Izzo's able to kind of use it and not have to worry so much because they're like-minded in the way that they're wired to play the game of basketball. Izzo is definitely defensive first. Tyson is as well, but Tyson can also get you a bucket. So I think that they can be constructed well to be good in March, but I do think that it's not going to be possible if Gabe doesn't become that scorer, goes to the rim, gets a couple posters, because he can do it. We've seen the athleticism. It's just whether or not he wants to. Marcus, same way. Marcus, I think, needs to make it more of a presence defensively because I think he can be a great defender with his length. But I think he puts too much pressure on himself to be also a scorer like he was in high school. Like, hey, this is college. You have to do what's best for your team. And whether that's you just coming in and playing the best defense you can possible, that's your role. Like, stay in your role. You're a captain now. So being in your role and flourishing in your role is going to be so important because guys are going to be following after you. So I think they'll compete, but I think March is where they definitely would want to put more of their presence on.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a toss-up as it relates to what Gabe's season can be because the fact that he didn't transfer after the fallout he had with Coach Izzo that we saw during the UCLA game, that, he's going to be really engaged to Coach Izzo. And I hope that doesn't mean he's going to be walking on eggshells, but he can just really be in a situation that he can get the most. But I just hope it doesn't make him catatonic where he's just like, one of those old cartoons where the cat is just walking around so concerned. Aaron says this may be this may be Izzo's best coaching year from a standpoint because he's not expecting much from it. You're right. Now here's one thing I'll argue with that though, Aaron. It may not be that much as expected, but he may not have much to be able to contribute with this young team coming together. That's something to keep in mind. Baller's Page says, Izzo, let's be real, has missed on titles in 14, 16, 18. Bridges, Jackson, Winston, they lost to the Qs, and then remember the Texas game that they was favored. You're right. I mean, I think as of recent, over the last, you can say 5 to 6 years, there's been some letdown, including UCLA. And the question becomes, did he really have the talent? I think we can definitely argue he had the talent with that team that included, Jaren Jackson and others that Syracuse lost. And, whatever it is, it may be something that he needs to work on for those type of moments, whether it's personnel or whatnot. But we'll see, man. I really think the best chance they had was the COVID season. If that season would have continued, and if it was, we had a bracket that had, Kansas and Michigan State with Cassius getting up a last shot, and who knows what was going to happen with the kind of year he had. So that could very well have been it, and it was gone. So it'll be something to see. We will definitely be keeping an eye out. You have anything else you want to add, Terry, before we move on to the next?
No, I mean, just the last thing is just like Izzo does perform well when his team is the underdog. I think that goes to say, a magnitude, just like Izzo just knows how to get his guys up to play games. And so when you're not having that big of expectations on you, you can play freely. And so I think with coming off of that COVID year with Cassius's last year, they had a lot of expectations coming in because the role players that were around Cassius played well because Cassius was such a good leader. So I think now that they have their expectations not as high, I think this gives them a chance to kind of grow and learn. And that's why I think March can be very crucial for them because they may take some they may take some bad losses, they may take some good losses, but I think it's a good opportunity for them to learn.
Ooh, Moni Williams bringing the fire. She said Denzel Valentine question. Why hasn't he made an impact in NBA? He was an All-American this senior year, and it was a lottery pick. Remember a few years ago, he went to the Drew League and some player killed him. Here's what I'll say to that. Shout out to Denzel. I remember I saw him a couple weeks ago right after his camp. We had a great conversation. Shout out to his dad, Carlton, down there enjoying that Florida sun. He's probably sitting at the same pool with everybody right now. And down there with Orlando, as well as Kamon, my girl Kyrie Jefferson. Here's what I'll say to that, Moni. The NBA is hard. The NBA is hard. I mean, you take a player like Denzel, 6'5", great guard, was a great prospect going into the NBA. He battled some injuries, and based on the team you are, it's just really difficult, I think, to be a dominant player. I think it's fair to say that. Whatever happened at the Drew League, I witnessed that. Yeah, my man put it on him. It wasn't a good showing. I won't even sugarcoat that. And I just think it speaks to the different levels and almost going back to Coach Izzo's point about how important it is for him to continue to nurture these players to help them with that NBA transition. I mean, it's ironic that the same people that we don't hear much about in college go to the NBA, become great. I used the story of Grant Long. When I sat with him a few months ago, he talked about being the third or fourth best guy on his high school team and then being like, second or third guy on his college team. But this guy ends up going on and having a 15-year career in the NBA. And I just think it really is different for different people, man. There's a sweet spot that goes with that. So to answer the question before I go to you on that, Terry, I think it just speaks to the difficulty of being successful in the National Basketball Association. It's not to be taken for granted. What do you think, Terry?
No, the NBA asks for different stuff out of players. Denzel coming in, his athleticism was in question at times, he reminded me kind of with Danny Green, but could dribble and play make a little bit. I think with Denzel, that team and that spot he was with Fred Hoiberg and the Bulls, I feel like that team just wasn't very stable for a guy like Denzel that needs a bit more structure. I feel like a guy like Bryn, his game, spot-up shooter can be on just about any NBA roster. I think because Denzel's game was so different, I feel like it was a lot harder for him to fit into systems, which could be a credit to his game, but also be very a big hurt to his game as we see today. But I think the biggest thing is just athleticism. I think, you know, he was never the most athletic guy. Like lacked speed and quickness. And he wasn't the most athletic guy, but his IQ was there. But sadly, in the NBA, you gotta have the athleticism and the quickness to kind of get you in spots where your IQ can kind of take over.
Yeah. You know what? To Mike's Hoops points, right on point. And Aaron, I want to come back to what you said. And here's the thing. I'll throw a theory out there, man. And this is no knock. You can't help who your parents are or where you go. But Denzel is a coach's son. His dad coached him to success in high school, as well as Bryn Forbes, you know, and other, you know, great players that's doing great. That relationship was extended to Coach Izzo, you know, where there was that strong connection between coach and player. And I think what may happen is the disassociation or the lack of connection, short of Austin Rivers playing for his dad in the NBA, wasn't there. So I think he was automatically at a disadvantage compared to how it was for him growing up playing all the time. He's always had a significant relationship with this coach. And I think that umbilical cord, for lack of term, was cut when he got to the NBA because it's business as usual. I mean, think about it, man. You may play for a team, but you didn't get recruited by that guy. That guy didn't come in your living room and build a relationship with you over time. Also, too, Mike, who say, why can't he just not be good enough? I think that's what we're, you know. So am I being politically correct? Yeah, why can't he's just not good enough? Well, but I'm careful with that terminology, and I'll use that in the post Kwame Brown era. He was good enough to make the NBA, and he's good enough to get contracts. I don't think it's about not be. I think your terminology, I don't disagree with it, but I'm just careful to be misleading because he's still better and more solid than so many other people who play basketball. And I think we're so quick to tell you why a guy shouldn't be in the league, but, you know, how many other guys can play better than him? Now, we can argue that we know people this, and that, but clearly it worked out to his advantage that even though it didn't work out in Chicago, he's over at Cleveland. And I think time will tell. Has he hit a ceiling? Will we see more? Will we see his numbers diminish? But, Mike, what I want you to do is I want you to stay with us this season. Stay with us this season. And as we watch Denzel, let's continue to have dialogue, because if that is the case, maybe your comment will just be a flat out, yeah, Mike, you're right, compared to, hey, let's look at some other factors. I'm willing to do that. What do you think, Terry?
I think just part of that is just not being good enough. I mean, I think, you know, just with this athleticism, a lot of that is a gift from God, and it's kind of hard. But I think just what he brings to the table is just doesn't fit what teams need. And my example, just with like Ray Allen, Vince Carter, guys that were able to stay around a lot longer because they can shoot the basketball. I mean, if you can shoot, the league will make room for you. That's why I thought Bryn was always going to have a better chance of lasting a little bit longer than Zell. I think Zell's IQ is up there. I think he's a great player. But I think in the NBA that just relishes so much on athleticism, I think part of that is just not being good enough. I think not being athletic enough is not being good enough. I mean, Denzel right now is on the Cleveland Cavaliers, which I think he'll have his chance to make some noise, maybe get a contract or whatnot on there. I mean, he's on the Cavs right now, so maybe he gets some time with JB Bickerstaff and you know and his team. But I think just not being athletic enough to me is not being good enough. So
yeah.
And
I agree with that in the sense that I know what you mean, but look at Aaron's point. Aaron posed a question. Do you think the way Izzo develops players here at MSU hurts some players at the NBA? Actually, no. I think that he's better getting guys ready for the NBA career, because guys who may, like, let's use Aaron Henry. One can argue that Aaron Henry somewhere else has been for some reason, man. Let me tell you something. And I've gotten this from direct sources with the MSU coaching staff. NBA GMs call Tom Izzo and his staff on draft night, Terry. Do you understand me? They call them on guys that wasn't even on Michigan State's roster. They'll call them on guys that he may have recruited, he may have some familiarity with. So I think Tom is in a position that when he's done at Michigan State, he's going to get an NBA check. Not necessarily an NBA coach's check, but kind of like a beeline where he'll get, you know, a consultant fee. He'll be able to come in, but because for so long, he's been able to kind of get his guys up there and get them prepared. And I think it's something to be said that, you know, with a day like what yesterday was in practice with Ben Simmons, for Tom Izzo to say, yeah, I talked to Doc Rivers to say, hey, I have this way where I can get in contact with a, you know, college coach, and we talk. And it's crazy, man. these coaches talk all day long, because then he was like, yeah, I talked to Calipari and all. I mean, he's like, damn, like, what do? You just watch hoops and talk to your coaching friends. But no, Aaron, I think I would say that it helps him, because what I'm seeing is that the Michigan State pedigree with guys he gets in the league, guys that he brings back during the grind week to help and work on is really successful. And it just may very well be that Tom Izzo's legacy would be how he prepared guys to have a sustainable career in the NBA compared to winning multiple championships. What do you think, Terry?
No, I think that's a good point. I think Izzo's pedigree with recruiting, scouting, evaluating definitely goes without saying. I think that a lot of times people do question his play style, because I think the biggest comparison that we could look at is like Calipari and Izzo. I think Calipari, I think, and that's Hoops Hype. I think that's where I'm getting to. I think Calipari and Izzo, I would say Calipari's sense of like, I wanted to help develop this player in the style that the NBA is kind of catering to. And I think Juwan Howard is starting to do that as well. Part of that is his NBA pedigree. I think Izzo's more sense of what he knows and what he knows best. I think that's why a lot of times people can question, like, is Izzo really getting me to where I need to be on the next level? Because in the NBA, they are scoring a ton of points. It's offense-oriented with some defensive principles, but it's definitely more offense-oriented, which is Calipari's style. I think Krzyzewski has definitely shifted a bit in his style as well, getting the one-and-done players, being more offensive-oriented as well. But I think Izzo just does a great job developing underrated, overlooked people and get them a chance, like a Draymond Green. I think he does a great job with getting players who aren't really on the radar of being the best player, grooms them, makes them into a top dog, and allows them to fight and get with what's theirs on a high level. So I think Draymond's a perfect example where Izzo does a very good job of getting guys that are under the radar and then making them into great players, diamonds in the rough in a sense.
Yeah, staying with Hoops Hype's question, I appreciate that question. We'll get to Aaron's comment too. Tom Izzo, one of my first interviews with him years ago, when I talked about the North Carolina championship game, I remember, they had 6'7", 6'8", 6'10" guys coming off the bench for North Carolina compared to Michigan State's lineup of a Shannon Brown or somebody who's 6'4", 6'5". And I asked Tom, I was like, I said, is this a difference between, I said, now I see the difference between Midwest recruiting and national recruiting. And Tom eyes lit up like, yeah, you're right. Because see, now, so to Hoops Hype's point, and I love the question, I won't say that his style is outdated, and I'm not trying to tiptoe around that. I would say that he's been doing certain things for so long that certain part are just instilled. Now, is that a long way I won't say outdated, because it still works. I mean, for the most part, his team is always going to the tournament. His team is always going to compete, and then everybody knows you cannot sleep on a Michigan State team. I don't care what's going on. Even with this team, Aaron said it earlier. It's like, dude, like, they're going to be underrated. That might be a good thing for them. Hoops Hype has something else to add. He said, MSU fans championships be the Final Four. Man, I can't stop laughing at that, man. You crazy for that. We said LOL, right. Izzo, to me, looking for that outside is very controlling. That's why a lot of the 5-stars say no to Izzo. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Izzo has his way. He is who he is. He's 66 years old. However, and I think that there's a sustainable aspect to his coaching style. I mean, that's why at the end of the day, those NBA coaches are picking up the phone when he calls, or they're calling him. That's why on draft night they're reaching out. So I think it's easy to take Tom Izzo for granted.
That's why that's why I think Izzo does a much better job of coaching underrated players, because he can be controlling. But I think for an underrated guy like Draymond that's coming in, and I remember, I think it was you that told me the story where Draymond got kicked out of practice because he was just being lazy, had a bad attitude. Mm-hmm. That's where Izzo's love, he leans on you, and he's like, look, I'm trying to tell you to do this. And now Draymond's an NBA star, an NBA all-star, I should say.
And to be honest, let's really be there, man. He's almost like the conscience of the NBA. I mean, when Draymond speaks, he speaks unfiltered. People listen and they respect him. And even that's being respected, that he's been able to tell his coach from college, like, look, man, you need to get some younger players on your staff. And not only does Izzo do it, but he acknowledges him for doing it, And Tom Izzo is unique, man. He's unique to play for. He's unique to know. But there's something that you can't argue, man. As far as somebody having a name, Mr. March, they're like, he gonna be around here, dude. He knows how to get it going. And not to say his style is outdated. I think he is trying to evolve. But see, that's what happens when you have a very long coaching career. A lot of coaches we can't look at to say,
that's true.
Chris Beard at Texas Tech. I'm just throwing a name out there. He ain't coached long enough for us to say it's outdated or it's whatever. I mean, we just been seeing him for so long. Let's do this really quick. I don't mind taking any more Michigan State questions. I love the energy we get, but I do want to take a break and acknowledge our sponsors. We wouldn't be doing all the great things we're doing if it wasn't for great people like my guy Horatio Williams and the Horatio Williams Foundation, Gilead Sciences as well, doing an amazing job. And we also have Dick's Sporting Goods that's holding us down. I want to thank Josh Langford for being a part of our SPS Stars Combine Showcase. Man, his comments to the young players, man, was great. His interview he did with Terry and I was amazing, and we had a great time at the SPS Stars Showcase. And I just tell you what, man, be on the lookout. Us looking at growing this and doing some more. And I've been getting so many calls and text messages, Terry, about, hey, man, the next time you do something, I got this guard, I got this guy, and and we welcome that, male and female alike. So with that, man, coming back from that brief break, I want to thank all the people for sharing their thoughts on Michigan State. They're going to be opened up against Ferris State next week. Then we'll get this thing rolling, man. But, hey, my man said, pack it up. We up out of here. Pack it up. I'm gone. I'm out. Ben Simmons reportedly has sold his home in New Jersey. That's, of course, where he laid his head. As a Philadelphia 76er. He like, I'm up out this piece. You know what? You probably didn't get a chance to see it, but Gilbert Arenas has about 6 minutes on a podcast. And, brother, let me tell you something, man. Hey, Gil kind of put something out there that was real deep and heavy, Terry. It was in response to what's happening with Ben Simmons. And he gave a perspective that got me because it was totally different than what I was thinking. Gilbert Arenas spoke on the Ben Simmons situation, saying Ben didn't do anything wrong. He said he's in a practice. And I think for many of us who are non-NBA affiliated people, when we think about a practice, we think about a coach asking you to do something, there's an expectation. Like, why is there even a question? But we have to remind ourselves, man, NBA practices is kind of like an oxymoron. That's the whole thing behind the Allen Iverson practice statement. Now, he walked that back because it sounded of low character, him saying that. But these guys don't practice. He said, Gilbert Arenas said, man, Ben Simmons is being called out to do a drill. He said, that don't happen in practice. They said it's the first five, reserves, and they go like that. He said what Ben Simmons was doing was trying not to be a distraction, blending in, but he kept getting called out. And Gilbert Arenas went as far as to say that it was fair. Their whole goal, because he talked about the fact that they had his reaction on videotape. They eventually said, look, I'm not about to do that. So I think a lot of us, when we think about being prep players and amateur players, when we hear something about, your conduct in practice, we're like, well, it should be, coach is the leader, do what he says. But that NBA lifestyle is totally different. And he says that it could have just pretty much been a setup. And they were setting Ben up to get the response they wanted going there. I wonder what this comment is going to say in relation to that. Women's basketball said Ben Simmons is an asshole. I'm sorry. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on, women's basketball. Why you got to be an asshole, though? We ain't heard him say nothing. I mean, if anybody could be argued as an asshole, you can argue that Kyrie is an asshole, whether you believe it or not, because you hear him talking. You can argue Draymond's an asshole. Why is Ben Simmons an asshole? You may not like what you. And I want to hear your feedback on that women's basketball, because we love to hear it all here. Go ahead, Terry. What you think, man?
I think the whole Philly situation. I've been keeping up with the reports on it, and I've been seeing a lot of reports with saying that Ben Simmons is immensely ready to play. I've seen reports that saying that Ben has back tightness but refuses to go to treatment and get worked out. I've been seeing a lot of stuff like that. What I thought was interesting was an NFL lineman, Jason Kelsey, Philadelphia Eagles center. He said something that I thought was interesting, and AI did as well a while back. Not a while back, but a couple of days ago. Jason Kelsey said dude, just play better and Philly will love you. And I think that says something. And I think AI was just saying like, hey, like, love you, bro. Just to sum up his tweet, like, hey, love you, bro. Just get out there and execute. So a lot of these guys that are in Philly that are really, that have a good rep around there, Jason Kelsey on that Super Bowl winning team, at AI, he goes without spoken. So I think with that being said, though, I think Philly and Ben have a love-hate relationship. I think they want Ben, and I think they think if Ben plays well for them, they'll end up loving him. But I think Ben refuses, and he's like, "Dude, I'm done." Like he's like the guy that's trying to get the girl back, and the girl's like, "Dude, no, like no, I don't want you." And I think Ben has made it very crystal clear that he doesn't want to be there. And I think the difference between that I think what's hurting Ben now, and it makes me think about that Harden situation. James Harden still came to practice, still played, still had really big games. I remember when he dropped 44 on Portland while he was still with the Rockets and still playing really well and kept his trade value up. I think with Ben not wanting to participate, kind of, having a lot of dramatic scenes, headlines and stuff like that, I think it makes it hard for teams to want to trade for you because it's like, dude, like, who knows if you don't like things around here, we're not going to give up because Philly's asking for a lot for Ben. Like, Philly's asking for a lot. They see him as a high trade value. I don't. And the reason why is because Ben's acting like that. So I think this whole situation maybe getting blown out of proportion. I think Ben is trying to do this the subtle way. Like, look, y'all not going to trade me. I'm kind of just going to blend in, do what I can do, maybe sit out a couple games till y'all work something out. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. It's the league. But I think when dudes are calling him out, like, hey, Ben, do this drill, do this, do this. I think Gilbert Arenas is onto something where, like, they're trying to see where Ben's head at. But Ben's like, look, you already know how I feel. Why even start this? So I think both sides have really good points. But I think Ben is ultimately going to take the blame because he's on the team. And people are saying he needs to be a team player, which is true. I think Ben can show up and contribute while he's still there, but Ben wants nothing to do with this organization.
Yeah, very good. Women's basketball came back and said, but you can't let Doc Rivers and Embiid and the 76ers off the hook. Yeah, here's the thing. I think that we have a natural bias towards players who don't go along with what we expect. They're very wealthy. They're doing really well. And we say, hey, what is the problem? I want to see what Aaron is saying. He said, let's face it, Simmons has checked out and he wants out of Philly. Philly is down for the week to play at all, so I really don't blame him for wanting to leave. You know what? You're absolutely right. Let's break down what Aaron is saying. He says Simmons is checked out. I want to come back to that. Philly is not for the week, right? And I really don't blame him. And that's the other part, Terry, what you were saying earlier. The one thing I want to add to what you were saying is that maybe he can't perform right now. We still haven't addressed his performance issues. You know, I mean, you can want to do all that you want to do, but if you haven't gotten past the psychological block or that lid being on your brain to say, I can't do this, you're not going to be able to perform. So it's not like he wants to get out there and get at it. You know, you have all these things going on. I think it's going to get to the point where it's become irreparable. And until Philly is ready to come off some of what they're going to get, they're going to have to look at it as, you know, how much can we get to cut our losses? And you wonder if Daryl Morey and Elton Brand are going to be more egotistical about it and see what happens. But I don't see it getting better anytime soon. It's a nasty situation. And I think the more this goes on, the further Ben is going to have to get from Philly. And then he's still going to need some assistance once that happens. What does Netta share with us? She said, hey, this fine butter's back, LOL. Yeah. But save this question for the opening night part. What do y'all think of Westbrook looking so bad with the Lakers? And I kind of like the Warriors. Some people saying you should play Russ with the second unit where he can get a flow. I like that idea, Netta. And what we'll do is based on where we're at. Well, actually, that's a great transition. So you're right on with that. Terry, what do you think, man? We want to talk NBA opening night. You know, got off. I mean, I think the NBA execs in New York are extremely ecstatic about the success of opening night. All those games were good. You talk about the double overtime with Boston and New York. I mean, come on, man. What could be better? You're talking about what Giannis and KD put on that night. You talk about the Lake Show. as well, man. It was just like good basketball. I think we're all getting back to this normalcy, and we're seeing a product of it, man, and you can't be mad. And I'll just simply say this about the Lakers, man. The Lakers ain't never come out in no early season game trying to win. The Lakers are geared for a 7-game series. I think that's what people have to understand. And maybe as a fan, you can say, hey, that's not it. I want to get your best every night. But they trying to figure this thing out to win championships. You know, and I ain't mad at them because I'd much rather you perform your best during a championship series than give me, your best performance during these mediocre, games that I hate to say don't mean anything. And somebody could argue that. And it does mean something in the sense if a fan gets a chance to see their favorite player. But these guys are geared on championships. But Terry, what's your thoughts on opening night in the NBA?
Well, last night was a big one. The showdown in the Garden is what I called it, down in the Madison Square Garden. The Knicks and Celtics game, that game was really good. Jaylen Brown played really well. Julius Randle and Evan
Ford had 46?
What was that?
What did Jaylen Brown have? He dropped 46?
Yeah, 46. Yeah, he dropped 46. Tatum didn't play too well, but along with Tatum, I'll bring up a little bit later with Curry, they didn't really play too well, but still had an impact on the game. Warriors and Lakers, I thought was a really interesting game because Steph had a triple-double, but right in his press conference, he said he played horrible. And I think that goes to show that, like, Steph and LeBron, which is my point for this opening night, Steph and LeBron, their games are still evolving. Like, LeBron looks really good, even at 36. I mean, he dropped 34, 5 assists, 10 rebounds. Like, LeBron was doing his thing. AD was as well. The rest of them are still trying to find their groove. It's game one. It's not the NBA Finals yet. But I think to go with Steph, I mean, for all y'all that think Steph Curry is just a shooter, he's not. I mean, the man can do it all. He constantly, with Klay out still right now, Jordan Poole's been stepping up. But I think with Klay out, Curry still sees a lot of attention offensively, which is not to excuse the way he shot the ball. But what I think this brings out the side of Curry is that he gets to contribute in other ways, like 10 rebounds from Stephen Curry, 10 assists. Like, he's able to affect the game while not being able to shoot the ball well. And I think if you're a great shooter like Curry, that's like the ultimate compliment because everyone knows Curry can shoot the ball. But can Curry and Jason Tatum, which Tatum did a great job of that too, can they still impact the game while not necessarily shooting the ball well, which is a big question mark for Curry and Tatum because Tatum is a high-volume shooter. This team needs him to score. But I think they both did a great job. The Celtics came up with the loss, though, but I feel like Tatum still did a pretty good job of having his presence felt, and Curry's led to a win. So I think that's a big compliment of stars starting to evolve. Curry, he has, his accolades speak for itself, but he's still evolving as a great basketball player.
Yeah, and to Netta's point, about Russ coming off the bench and doing that for the sake, I think that's an excellent idea. It becomes an ego issue. Can Russ' ego handle that? And can he say, hey, man, he talks about this anything for a chip, but, that could be an added advantage. You got Russ coming off the second unit, pushing him like that. Hoop Ball Scoop, what's going on? He said, fellas, ain't it just great to see fans in the stands? It give you a rush. You're right, man. I think one thing to take away from this COVID is an appreciation. I mean, and like no other. And we full blown, we back in this piece. You know what I'm saying? So that should really help the players who have been at a disadvantage because it was the piped in, sounds, and they had to kind of relate to just playing, more so in their head than being out there on the court and having people on the court. So it's going to be something to see. We're making some good time. We're an hour plus into the show. We got a few more things we want to touch on, man. We want to shout out the WNBA, man, and their championship. Shout out CP, Candace Parker, you know what I'm saying? I mean, give it up. She made the move over to the Chicago Sky and she put it down, man. So that was great things. That's what we do, Terry. We can wrap up this by having a discussion about not only the Chicago Sky winning the championship, the GOAT of the WNBA, but also we got to give a shout out to every dude's favorite point guard growing up, Dawn Staley, with the $22 million contract in South Carolina, the highest paid woman in basketball. So I think that pretty much inevitably keeps her out of the running for an NBA head coaching job right now. She can stick around South Carolina and get that bread. But, boy, she leveraged that well. Before we go on to WNBA, Hoop Baller Scoop said Warriors are going to be great when Klay and Wiseman get back. You know what, man? Now, this sounds crazy. I just ain't feeling it. I just ain't feeling. I think that magic and that energy may be gone. I'm not saying they're not going to be a playoff contending team, despite that push. But I think something has been amiss, and it may be hard to reconnect. Don't ask me how I feel this way. But that's just the thought I have, Terry.
Okay. I'll leave it.
They said, okay, we go see. Who bought Scoop also says Stephen Curry been the best point guard in the league. No player gets 3 players on him. You're right about that. But we go see
Dame gets about 2.5, I would argue, but Curry gets attention like no other in the league right now.
Yeah, because they know Dame will pull from half. Not to say Curry won't either. Yeah, man. So let's talk GOAT talk, man. There's been this discussion, man, about who's the WNBA GOAT, man. Who is the GOAT? You got Lisa Leslie, Tamika Catchings, I think there's Cheryl Swoops and Diana Taurasi, if I'm saying it correctly, man. And what I'm so grateful for, man, is that with the big push the WNBA has been doing, that we've kind of gotten on board in our show, man. We spend a lot of time talking about the WNBA, and I got to be honest, man, I wouldn't have been having these conversations like this before. I appreciate all the people who chime in on our platform.
Tay and all that.
Yeah. She may be hitting us up real soon as well. But when we had this GOAT talk, when you Google WNBA GOAT, Diana Taurasi comes up. And it's not to argue with that, whatnot, but some can argue other people like Tina Charles, Tamika Catchings, but again, she seems to be the one that's leading the way. The WNBA announced that today that the Phoenix Mercury guard Diana Taurasi has been voted by fans as the league's greatest of all time. I mean, this just came out.
That's crazy. That
just came out, Terry. I'm looking at the calendar. That just came out last week, man. I mean, this is new news. They're saying she's the GOAT. Vote for the GOAT platform was established to celebrate the 25th year of the WNBA, and she got those votes. Who we got on deck right here? Aaron's like, the WNBA GOAT. I feel that Diana Taurasi, DT is just a beast. I mean, I think we got one of those, nobody can really question or challenge that, for a number of reasons. And I love the fact when it's not necessarily just the sports writers voting, but it's the people voting. And I don't know if it's been her time with the WNBA that's really done it, but I mean, she puts it down. What do you think about this WNBA GOAT recognition for Diana Taurasi?
Well, in my history with assignments, I've always been outside the box. And so I always went outside the box. And my player didn't necessarily play. I had Cheryl Miller. I fell in love with her when I saw Winning Time by Reggie Miller when that first came out. How they talked about her and how she beat dudes, how she was just a baller. And
like we were made aware, though, she was pre-WNBA, so she wasn't able to really be a part of it.
And so my outside the box, I have her as my WNBA GOAT. I know she didn't play there, so my assignment will be outside the box. But I feel like her just being compared as like missing out and could have been the Michael Jordan of the WNBA. I'm just reading stuff about her and how dominant she was on the court, and and hearing the things that experts said about her and what people compared her as. A lot of the stuff that we give credit to Michael Jordan, that's what Cheryl Miller did. And it's like, how could we not give her the WNBA GOAT? Probably because she didn't play in the league, but overall opinion of the best women's basketball player ever. That's my GOAT. I know it's WNBA.
Yeah,
I wanted to expand.
You know how we do. We always on this show, we can have our own criteria, Terry.
I wanted Cheryl Miller. She's one of my favorites.
I love it. Aaron says, great point about Cheryl Miller. She would be women's basketball GOAT. I want to get a few more comments. Aaron also said Cynthia Cooper would have given a run for a money relative. Okay. Women's basketball said that was a great WNBA finals. Did you see all the horrible and dirty Diana Taurasi was in the finals? I didn't catch it like that.
She got a feisty side. She got a feisty side.
Yeah, you spoke on your girl Tay in the building. She said, salute to Candace Parker bringing the title to Chicago. Might be one of the biggest stories ever in the league. You hope they can keep talking about that and she gets her props. But also along that line, Candace Parker's second title enhances her to me be top 5 or 6 ever. That's what women basketball says. Yeah, and I guess, for any minority, whether it's African Americans in a majority society, women in a male dominant society, it's like you got to push a little harder for your narrative and story to be told. Like, what would be the story of Candace Parker? I mean, she did it, man. She came back and, got on with the Sky, changed teams, and got another chip. There's something to be said about that. And I think there's always this bias or this looking at the WNBA as less than, man. But the more I pay attention to the game, the more respect I have for the game, for these lady hoopers. I want to shout out, former Miss Basketball from Michigan State. I was talking to her, and she said, just treat us like the dudes, just talk to us like you would do the dudes. And I think we got to take that more into account. And again, Tay has another comment. She said, I think the GOAT is between Cynthia Cooper and Diana Taurasi, Cheryl Swoops, and Maya Moore. Okay, but you can't let the fans' voice they're going to choose the current players more. So I think that's fair, because those are the people who are probably, great point, Tay, who are probably very engaged. They turn on the TV. This is the player they're rooting for. But I still think there's something to be said about that, and just kind of like, who else you got. But it's going to be an ongoing question going forward. Tell you what I'm going to do at the time, man. We rocking. We had an hour and 15. We want to thank Orlando for checking in. Kamora Gamble with we got college players checking in with us. The University of Florida. You want to know what's up with Florida? Shout out to my girl Kyrie Jefferson holding down. She has the KJ Kyrie Jefferson Speed Camp coming up in Detroit. 6 going to be all ages. From age 5 all the way up to high school age, and SPS will definitely be in the building. And again, I want to congratulate Dawn Staley, everybody's favorite point guard growing up. That was for my age generation, Terry. We all loved us some Dawn Staley. For her getting the bag, I think that's going to say a lot about women's hoops, and eventually she won't be the only one, because those schools got the money to pay, and it's about doing that. So before we get out of here, Terry, is there anything else you want to share? What's on the whole piece with, the GOAT, whether it's on the whole piece with our friend Dawn Staley getting the bag, or just your overall thoughts before we get on to our next show?
No, man, just really excited. Baseball has been also doing really well. I know our schedule is so loaded that baseball, we haven't been really able to touch it much, but the World Series is coming up. But
yep.
I'm just really excited at what's to come in the NBA. Some high caliber games. I think we've seen this year, teams are pretty evenly stretched, I would say. I think teams are pretty even, and I think that makes it even more fun in the tournaments where we get like stories and headlines of Trae Young versus New York, and some of these younger guys are starting to come up. And I just got to call out ESPN, man. Like, ESPN had the nerve to put Luka over Steph Curry. Like, I'm still upset about it. I'm not proud of it. I almost had to stop watching ESPN. I'm just kidding. But it was just like
ESPN on that one.
I think ESPN is just so eager for that next generational athlete to come up, and Luka's that guy.
But Luka has a global presence too. They're thinking about more eyes tuning in.
He does,
and that's the whole business part of it.
Yeah, and the last part, I compare Candace Parker's run with the Sky, kind of like LeBron James in the Warriors, winning in Cleveland, coming back home, taking the initiative to bring that joy back to your home city. So I thought that was really cool, seeing Candace celebrate, hug everybody that was close to her in her circle, and celebrate. And then she posed for that Kobe-ish picture.
Yeah, the Kobe pose, that was dope.
So it was her moment. She deserves it. KP has had a really great career, playing under Pat Summitt and going throughout her years of basketball. So she deserves that moment.
Yeah, she deserved it. She's definitely celebrated. One more comment that was a comment made by women's basketball. Cheryl Miller is the best ever, but she didn't play the WNBA because of knee problems. People don't realize she's younger than Cynthia Cooper. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good fact to have. Well, I want to tell you all thank you again. I want to thank our sponsors, Horatio Williams Foundation, Gilead Sciences as well. I want to thank Coach Orlando Watkins, who's literally chilling by the pool. I'm definitely jealous, definitely envious, but I'm going to put it together because God wants me to be better than that. So Terry McCord Jr., I want to thank you for always contributing. I want to thank all our followers. We'll be back next week. We'll add a little bit of Baseball World Series and go from there. So with that, we see you guys next time. Take care.